Well, it's 3 p.m. and OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr. are all still here. It's JJ Buckets, everyone. We're going to talk about the deadline. Obviously, we already had the big trade last night, and apparently nothing else. Just nothing else. We're not doing anything else here. Before I fully get into what's going to be a dreadful rant, like the video, obviously usual drill, subscribe to the channel, and make sure to check out my link below if you're planning on doing any responsible sports betting in the future. Now, my God, man, what the hell? I really don't get the idea here. I'm just gonna say it like that. I don't get the idea of what this team is doing here, right? So I thought the Jakob trade was a good trade at the time when I had the initial reaction in the middle of the night when I woke back up to do it. Now looking at it, I'm not a fan of the protections around that first round pick. And I'm not a fan of the fact that you just brought a guy in and made no other moves. Like, you really just stood pat with what you had, and what you had was not working. And as much as I like Jakob, and as much as I like all of these guys, don't get me wrong, I have nothing personally against any of these players. They're all very good to great players in their own right. But it just has not been working, and I don't think Jakob Poeltl, magically fixes all of that. I think he definitely solves a few problems, and it, possibly create some other ones from here as well, right? Because I'm sure like you've seen them talk already, but now we're sitting in a situation, right, where Fred, Gary, and Yak all need to be paid in the summer, right? One of those guys is in all likelihood not getting paid. So, I mean, sure, maybe you work out like a sign and trade with somebody and don't lose the person for absolutely nothing. But then, I mean, is that really that much better? Like, you probably could have had a better deal on the table right now. I don't know, man. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. I am not a fan of the lack of decisive moves by the front office here. Now, obviously, it's easy for me to criticize because I'm not sitting in these, offices making all these calls to all these GMs, and I'm not going to pretend like I can do Masai Ujiri's job. I quite frankly don't think anybody should pretend like they can do Masai Ujiri's job. But I mean, it feels lackluster. It feels disappointing. It's just, I don't get it. Where the mentality of, let's buy and just not sell, stand pat, fight to be a play-in team this year, maybe a playoff team first round out, whatever the case is, like, because that's the ceiling of this group at this point, isn't it? Like, hey, don't get me wrong, I like bringing in Yak. I think he solves and helps a lot of problems defensively, and I think that's great for this team. But now what? Because you still have an unhappy OG. You still have Fred that wants to get paid, like I was saying. Gary Trent Jr. that's going to need to be paid. Now Jakob Poeltl that needs to be paid. You have so many question marks around this roster, and again, around a roster that isn't producing any significant results. What are we doing here? At this point, and if I look like a fool in a month, so be it. I don't care. But even then, I think my point still stands on the ceiling of this team is not great at the moment. I was so on board for, just kind of retooling and, looking at this season like a season where you think to yourself, hey, the draft class is really good. We have a chance to get a really talented young player near the top of this draft. Let's fold the cards for this season. Let's, I don't want to call it a lost season, but call it whatever. Let's call it that. Let's have this lost season where we're not winning anything realistically anyways. We're not doing anything significant. Let's have this season take the step back, get a talented player from a loaded draft class, figure out what we need to figure out, and obviously in that process, trade some guys at the deadline. No, that's not what we're doing. What we're doing here is we are fighting to be a 7 and an 8 or an 8 seed. And trying to get bounced by, Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia, whoever else in the first round. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't get it. From obviously a personal standpoint too, this is obviously just like joking around, shooting the shit. I was very much so looking forward to diving into the draft class, looking at all these guys, giving an in-depth look at all these players, and you know, it's fun envisioning, these young prospects, these up-and-coming guys that are in the draft on your team and thinking about the fits with the guys that you currently have. Now we're kind of robbed of that too. I mean, hey, don't get me wrong, the Raptors can potentially maybe still be bad enough to land in the lottery, but I mean, like, there's enough on the roster where it's like, yeah, you can probably fight into a playoff spot if you want, but again, like, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but that's just really, in my opinion, not your best course of action here, because you don't have enough. You don't have enough, and you're gonna likely lose somebody for nothing. A lot of problems that you had before have not disappeared magically. You solved like one issue of just, potentially your defense with, some added rim protection and obviously a really good defensive rebounder and just a good center. Like, cool. But what's the end goal here? Just genuinely, what is the end goal with this group? Because respectfully, you've had a big enough sample size for this group at this point. It doesn't work. And you're juggling just all of these guys that are going to need the ball. You're juggling Pascal Siakam, who's obviously a fantastic player, top 15 to 20 player in the league, who needs the ball. Fred VanVleet is somebody that wants and needs the ball. OG Anunoby wants a bigger role, so he wants the ball on his hands. Gary Trent Jr., I mean, he can kind of play his off-ball stuff. He's not the biggest problem there, but like Scotty Barnes, who needs to grow and develop, also needs the ball in his hands. You just have a lot of guys that need the ball in their hands, and you're comfortable just moving forward with all of that, with the knowledge that in all likelihood you're not retaining all these pieces moving forward, unless you want to go into a luxury tax for a team that just isn't that good. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? That is my question of the day. Drop it in the comment section below. Let me know if you know, because I surely don't know. What are we doing here? That's me for the day, folks. I'm not having a fun one. Reiterating usual drill. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check out the link in the description for the sponsor for today. Shout out to BetUS, they're great. Yeah, it's JJ Buckets. Much like everybody else, or most people I would say in the Raptors fan base, I am disappointed.